people, we grew up on stories. They are our healing, they are our light, they are our way forward. And when I discovered, I think it just really must have been an epiphany and a message from the Almighty that there was no platform designed for that in the place where there's the largest number of Caribbean people in diaspora. The light bulbs went off, right? And so we began 4 years ago with skill sets and grit and a determination to create this showcase for writers who I've come to learn literally write to save their lives. And while they're writing to save their lives, they are creating for us as Caribbean people in a space that does not belong to us. They're creating not just historical record, but they're creating something that all civilizations claim, which is a body of work, a body of literature, a body of stories. So we do this with very little support financially from institutions that we would expect would do it, but we do it anyway. Because I've got
Hey guys, welcome to Comfy Cozy Up. So I started showing you a clip of the video that I'm going to talk about today, which is for Random Tuesday, Brooklyn Caribbean Lit Festival. Now, it is a festival I believe is 4 years. The first year happens to be the year that I'm still upset to this day that I missed, because that was the year Kai Miller kicked off that festival. And up to this day, I've yet to meet him. I've met everyone else that Caribbean books that I've loved, except for Kai Miller. So he needs to go back on tour. Anyway, so I knew this year that they were going to be back outside, back doing in-person events. So I wanted to go. So I was excited when I realized when it was gonna be, and it was gonna be this weekend. So I made plans that I was gonna go to every event except Sunday event, which is today. I'm recording this. I wasn't able to go to Sunday event. Sunday event is the poetry night. Yeah, hurt my feelings. And it was at a social gathering, so there's gonna, the rum, that kind of setup. Now, I've been to something very similar to this, so I think I recorded some of it when I went to Brooklyn Book Festival back in 2019. And I think it was one of those nights when I went to the Caribbean session. I remember I tell you how much fun I was having, and it was a similar theme. There was a lot of different authors there, and I think that's when I also met I'm looking at her book, but I can't remember her name, which is so bad because this author is such one of my favorite Caribbean authors, and I'm catching a blank. The Pain Tree. Yeah, we can't have that. I'll put her name here. She was there. Quite a few other people. So if you've never seen that video from 2019, that was one of my favorite video ever that I've ever done on this video on this platform. And it was, I typically for Brooklyn Book Festival, I don't just do one day, which is the main stage day. I always do the small events leading up to the main stage day, and this is one of them. So when I went to this event, there were so many familiar faces there that I recognized on day one, which was the Friday night. And I was just smiling, and some people did recognize me, and it felt good because I was amongst these amazing Caribbean authors and poets, and it was just, yes. So the first night was for this author, the King of Soca, and this is from Elizabeth Montano. So if you know her, she is the mother of Marshall Montana. So this is a soca artist, if you're not familiar with soca, but if you're from the Caribbean, you absolutely know who he is. He's had over 40 years of being in the industry, and every carnival that you've ever been to in any country, you will hear at least one of his music, period. It's not a carnival without him. Mr. Big Chuck, all that. So that's him here as a little boy. I have to say, this was one of the best author interview session I've ever experienced. And I would credit a lot of it to the actual interviewer. And what I'm going to say is, she knew how to keep the author wanting to talk more about the book, want to share more about her experience being a mother of a star. But she also knew how to keep the audience engaged, because this was a long interview. We're talking almost 2 hours of them talking. They also put clips of videos, of documentaries, of songs that I can relate to. I remember when Big Truck was out. It was the best thing ever. I remember being in high school, and I remember it was Eastern Parkway. That song was like, it came on and people went crazy. So it was like a reminiscent of stuff, but you learn a lot of history of soca. So for those of you who don't know soca music and not familiar with it, you would enjoy this kind of setup. And the interviewer, she also, you could tell how much she knew of the music and their experience. So she was just like a delight to just, something about her, how she delivered her present was just amazing. Like, I literally enjoyed this interview. I didn't want to get up. I didn't want to miss anything. I didn't even want to look at my phone. I just did not want to do any of that. I wanted to just focus on the stage and what was happening. So I'm going to put a little bit of clip of them talking, so you can get see what I'm talking about.
You existed before Marshall came along. You had a life, you had dreams, you had ideas. And so we want to talk about your early days as a teacher, as a wife. What was some of the music that you loved the most as a young woman? What were some of the local and global influences that shaped who you were and who you became when you became a mother?
Wow. That sounds like a lot, because I'm really a very simple woman, you know. And I came from a very simple background, a background where I grew up in the northwest peninsula of Trinidad, and that's Caranal, a fishing village. And I grew up with my mother, my grandmother, and one sister. But we are always a family of great plans. My mother made 2 children, and she made us both on the 4th of November, 2 years apart.
Wow.
So that's where I came from. And so I knew about living a very simple life. When we were not rich, we were very poor. My mother worked as a seamstress, and she worked for $5 a day to take care of us, right? And then I started working at the age of 15 to take care of her. I was my son said to me today, he said, but this Elizabeth is going to go more than 96.
Thanks so much for your work and for your dedication, for your support of not just Marshall, but a whole ecosystem of young artists who have really revolutionized our music. So thank you so much for that. Thank you so much for joining and sharing, although we didn't get all the secrets that we wanted.
Now, one of the things that I couldn't do in this interview session was that I couldn't put a lot of the things that was making everybody excited because of the copyright issue. So the music part, the bit of the documentary part, some of those things like I couldn't put in this, but so you had to be there. But I believe on the YouTube channel that they did record and have it on their YouTube channel. It's so definitely check that out, because you get more and you can, you know, appreciate it, the interview session there. So then after that, we had the sign-in session, and that's when, you know, everybody had their chunky book. It is expensive, but it's so worth it. I will just treasure this. It is that coffee table book. So I was able to get it signed and take a picture with her. And in my mind, I was like, can her son pop out? I was like, oh, but you know. And I was able to see other authors, like of course Celeste Muhammad was there, which she recognized me, so I was like, yeah. And I saw a couple of other poets that I recognized, and a few other authors were there that I know their faces, but I couldn't remember what books they wrote. And so that was a bit of a bummer, because I'm kind of like sitting there staring like, I can't remember. And I didn't want to really go up to them and be like, oh, you look from, you know, which I probably should, because, you know, it's a mixer. It was so many people there. You just have to navigate through the crowd. But in the future, I'm not going to just not ask who they are. So then we have day 2. And day 2 was the author for Women in Endurance. So I'm only showing you this card because, unfortunately, she did not have any books there. So the bookstore didn't have any books available. So I think her first name is pronounced Dalma. So this book was one of the books, I think, for Dee Dee Brown Girls Book Club. She read this back a couple months ago. And this is actually a second book in a series, but it's a standalone, so you don't have to read them in order. But there's one character that was in the first that she did a story of. And one of the things I loved about this session with this author, now she was introduced by Celeste Muhammad, and who talks about how this book predates her book, which is, you know, Pleasantville. If you were a part of readathon in the summertime, then you know that is the book that we selected from her. And I had an opportunity to meet her early on in June that week, and I did a vlog on that. So it was nice seeing her again. Third time I've seen her. Yeah, I love that. I feel like it's like I'm having another Nicole Dennis Ben moment, because I see her so often now. Like I feel like I know her. I know her. So that's how I'm starting to feel, because I've seen her so much now. And so the author now who did the interview, she now is an Haitian author, and I will pop her up here. I have not read her book, but I have seen one of her books floating around before. And she was, I wrote a lot of notes here, but they're just fine. Yeah, this is from my blog. That I'm gonna go through it. And interesting thing about when I was writing this note, I went to this Mediterranean restaurant, and I pulled out this book, and I wrote this much in a full 2 pages of, and the people there thought I was like a food critic. It was quite something. They were extra nice to me that day, because I've been there before. I've never get that kind of treatment. They were extra with me. It was unbelievable how extra they were, because they probably thought I was some kind of food critic, because I was writing the heck out of this. But I wanted to write while I was there, because everything was fresh in my mind, so I could, when I write my blog post, I have something to look back to. So nevertheless, anyway, what I liked about this interviewer is how excited she was, because she read the book twice. And she was having that fangirl moment, and you can see it. So it was quite funny, like sometimes when the author would answer certain questions or certain topic, and it was something that she wrote on her paper. She's like, I wrote that, I was waiting to ask you that kind of thing, and we were just all laughing. So this one also was different because it was outside. We were actually outside at the plaza across from the bookstore. And so it was just, you know, you outside, the perfect summer day. The sun was out. It was a little warm, but it still had that nice atmosphere. And little by little, people are coming, sitting on the steps. So we all sit on the steps outside. I love that setup, and I thought this was nice. And the discussions were interesting, because when you think of the Caribbean, you often you know, the Spanish side kind of feel like they're separated. You know, you think of Puerto Ricans and Dominicans, like kind of separated from the other Caribbean island kind of way. But when you listen to her talk about this book, because I haven't read it yet, a lot of the things that she's talking about are things that the English side of the Caribbean can relate to. Even the French side of the Caribbean can relate to. So it's so much that we have in common that we don't realize, because we allow certain things to separate us. Like we're still Caribbean, but we still put ourselves in different category, even though we are all Caribbean. So that was interesting. I love the questions of medicines, of how, some of the foods in Puerto Rico came about, which is very similar to some of the soul food when you think about in the Caribbean and even in the US. Traditional medicine and different things that she talked about. And then there's always that role of women and men and the characters. Even though this book is said women of endurance, you have to think about the fact that it seems more of a woman's book, of a feminine kind of book, or that kind of deal. But it talks about a male character in the book, and there was a particular guy, I believe he's a poet, I don't know his name, and I put a clip here of him talking and asking questions on that, and he's a Jamaican, and that was a very interesting way of how she answered that question. And so I put a clip so you can see that part.
The man who's involved in the performance, both of them are unwilling. So my question to you is, what can we learn? What have you learned in writing this and finding a way of involving the divine masculine in the conversation of the divine feminine? And what can we learn from reading your book on how these two exist with each other and how they can't exist without each other?
Right. His question is, what can we learn about the relationship between the masculine and feminine, and what did I learn from it all? Well, as I said when I started, I did not plan on having major male characters because I didn't know how to write it, I felt, honestly, because I didn't know how men thought. And that sounds like facetious. I didn't mean it that way. But I think many men are socialized into keeping their emotions to themselves. Maybe they share it with other men, but for the most part, being strong and silent and all that. But that has the other side of that coin is that how does the woman know who you are if you're constantly, shielding yourself? So I was really glad when it must have been a male ancestor who showed up in my meditation and said, no, you gotta, Simon is gonna speak for himself directly to the reader. And I think I've learned as much from Simon as anyone else, because frankly, I did not conjure him. He came fully formed into my mind. And I know as an author I should claim everything. I don't claim everything. I think in many ways I'm an antenna for thoughts that are given to me, and they may be images. Of course it's not in the language that you receive. It's up to me to put it in this language. But the ideas, some people will say, well, the muses gave it to me. Some people say my imagination gave it to me.
So now the next thing is that I took away from it is like at the end, we all mingling and talking, and and how intimate the scene was. And I love that because every time I've been to a Caribbean book event, it's always like that. It's always never feel like you are like in a corner, you can't mingle and get to know the author or be in their space, that kind of thing. They're so welcoming, and I love that. And I'm always going to appreciate the fact that how they handle being in a room full of people who want to read their book and want to get to know them. So that was nice. There's interesting facts. There's one girl who is on Instagram who I follow. I did not recognize. I don't know if she recognized me, but we end up on a picture together, and then the author posted on Instagram, and I'm sitting here like, I follow her. And so I was a little bit bummed out because had I known, I would have said something to her. But hopefully the next event she will be at, I will definitely reach out to her and say, hey, we can't have this happening again. You gotta say hi. So I'm very much like, if you guys ever see me in any kind of social setting like that, feel free to say hi and remind me, because people are different on Instagram, or some people don't even post their face too much. They're really just posting like the books they're reading or whatever they want to show you, not so much their face. And I might forget who they are. So, remind me and say, hey, such and such, and you know, that kind of deal, and jog my memory and say hi to me. But because I'm always wanting to meet the people who I interact with on the internet. Always. So if you ever see me in New York walking around, say what's up. So overall, it was very good. I'm looking forward to where this is gonna take. I love the women. There's a team of four, three women and a man. And I was able to get pictures with the women. The man was a camera guy, so he's, you know, he camera guy, so he want to stay in the background. He's not really want to be out. The women I recognize, who I saw, like I said, at the previous event when I went to see Celeste Muhammad. So, but these women I was able to take picture with, so I'll put it here, are amazing, and I love the work that they put in and how they're giving the shine to Caribbean authors, and you know how I feel about that. I'm always going to support and push for Caribbean authors because they do not get enough shine and they do not get a lot of attention in the publishing world. So events like this that's going to highlight them, I'm here for it. So they didn't have a lot of book. So that was the only disappointing thing. I feel I was expecting a little bit more Caribbean books to highlight, but they did have a few, and I did only pick up two besides, okay, this beast of a book here. I also picked up Caribbean Heiress in Paris, and this book I've seen quite a few, and so Spanish Caribbean, I believe this author is, I'm not sure, it's not telling me where in the Caribbean she's from. So she's Spanish Caribbean, so she's probably either Puerto Rican or Dominican, but it doesn't say in the background exactly. But this, so yeah, I'm not sure. So anyway, I gonna read this. It is a romance, and I just love the cover, and I thought it was nice, so I'll say I'm going to read it. And of course, once I see this author, one of my favorite books that I read this year is from this author, so I had to pick it up because I haven't read it yet. And this is A Small Place by Jamaica Kincaid. So I saw this and I picked this one up. So this is all the Caribbean books I picked up, but I'm not mad about it because I'm on a budget, because I know Brooklyn Book Festival is coming up. It is, I believe, the second, whatever that first Sunday in October, I think it's the second, either the first or the second. I know I'm gonna want to pick up some stuff there, so I was kind of like, it's okay, because there's always a stand, a vendor there that is strictly Caribbean, and a lot of times the Caribbean authors will be sitting there in that throughout the day at that particular vendor. So and I was able to meet them and get my book signed. I've typically all the books I've gotten at Brooklyn Book Festivals were all signed books. And so I'm not sure. I haven't gone on the computer to see the list. The last time I checked, they didn't have the list of all the authors that's going to be there. But I believe by now, because it's going to be, what, in 3 weeks, that they might have the author there. So I would suggest, if you plan on going, check it out so you can see if some of your favorites are going to be there, and the time and panels are going to be. It is a all-day situation. We're talking, I'm usually there by 9. And I'm not leaving until like 5, 6 o'clock. It is an all-day event because I like the panel. I like the different stuff that they have. I don't just walk around. I want to meet the author, see the author, have the author sign my book. And I did all of that. So I will post the video in the description so you can check out 2019. So you can see what I'm talking about and some of the big name authors that do come to Brooklyn Book Festival. So this is the first time they're going to be back outside and have it normal, versus I think last year they attempted, but it wasn't. I didn't go, but from what I know, it's just basically vendors outside. They didn't really have live in-person panels. I think most of it was virtual. But this is the year that they are going to be back to like a regular setup. So I will be there. And if you plan on going, let me know. I would love to meet some of you guys, and that's going to show up and maybe go to some of the panels. And it's just always fun. This is my thing. I love to read. but I love to also interact with the author and learn from them, the inspiration to the story, and even have questions. There's how many times you read a book and you finish reading the book and you have questions. You just like trying to figure out what the author intentions or the different things you feel about the book. So those are always nice to go to panel because you can ask questions, and even when you do the sign-in, you can even ask questions there too. My favorite also was Terry McMillan was there. What is my other author that I remember that day? Oh my God. Bernice McFadden. Why am I forgetting? This is the year I learned that I didn't know her, Bernice McFadden mentor is Terry McMillan. I had no clue. That was her mentor. That's who helped her start out and helped her get through that door, that kind of deal. So yeah, then you get to know who my author crush is, if you don't already know. That video, the day I met him, that was it for me. I had the biggest crush on this author. So anyway, guys, I'm gonna end this here, and yes, go check out their YouTube page and their Instagram, and give them some love and support them as they continue to give voice and attention and the shine to Caribbean authors. So see you guys in the next one. Bye.